and years ago he retired now. We had an accounting professor who would not allow students to use financial calculators or Excel. He gave them the present value factor table, so they had to go work with those. Don't know why. You could also do another way of absolute referencing. That is actually rather useful if you're building complicated spreadsheets. Suppose whatever I'm going to use here, an interest rate, I want to use it 20 sheets down there somewhere. I mean, I have freakishly good memory, but even I'm not going to remember that annual percentage rate lives in BIS 302 MW January 27 cell F4. Instead of that, I'm going to give that cell a name. Okay. First, let's give that cell a name. Uh, on the formula bar, there's a little box here. If you come on top of it, it tells you what that box is. It says a name box. I'm going to give that a name. Okay. If you write the name directly here, it has so-called workbook scope, which means that name can be fetched anywhere in the workbook. Sometimes you want it to have scope only for that sheet. I'll show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to call this my first Excel APR. How you capitalize the words does not matter at all, but it has to be a contiguous set of characters. You cannot have spaces, and you cannot have names over which Excel already has property rights. For example, you cannot call it log, because there's a function called log. You cannot call it B25, because already there's a tag Excel uses B25 to represent the cell that's in row 25, column 2. Okay. Remember, B25 is just a tag. Okay. What was your name? Nicholas. Nicholas. Okay. Let me say Nicholas. We all know who it is, but I could also call him Nico. Okay. Maybe he has Greek heritage. Nico is the equivalent of Nicholas in Greek. Okay. The old Saint Nick and Nico. But as long as you know that tag Nico refers to Nicholas Compton, we don't have a problem. So those are tags. Just like they're tags, I can call it anything I want. But the difference is, once you give it a tag, it becomes an absolute reference. Now, if I use that in a formula, in fact, I like giving my names, long names, long and descriptive names. I don't think there's a limit to how many characters, maybe 255. But if you type the first few characters, it gives you, well, these are everything that starts with an M, then my. Oops, as you can see, my first Excel APR, okay, in the formula. Then I'm going to divide that by uh, frequency. I'm sorry. I think I divided by, oh, I wrote the formula in the wrong place. My first Excel APR, oops, divided by compounding frequency. I could also name that, and just to show you, I'm going to make that have a scope only specific to this sheet, which means I can use the exact same name in other sheets without creating a conflict. Sometimes it's useful. You copy and paste stuff. Are you referring to the freak in this sheet or some other sheet? Well, if there's a conflict, it uses the local one. Under formulas, define name, which is something I use a lot in my coding. So I created a define name shortcut on my quick access toolbar. What's the name? I'm going to call this iFreak. Uh, iFreak. It's my cell. I can name it anything I want. If you want to call it my Aunt Sally's beautiful eyes, as long as those letters are contiguous, you're all good. But I want the scope to be this worksheet. Now, if I refer to iFreak in another worksheet, it's going to say, I don't know that name. Okay? Because, let me show you. See, it didn't even suggest anything. Why? Because that name is as a scope specific to that worksheet. Okay, now I gotta do something with that cell. My sheets go to full screen when you go back to them. First, I'm gonna make that into a percent format. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus, in order to tell myself 2 years from now, and I don't remember what I've done in this sheet, I'm gonna make the background the Welsh red. And if you want to know the hex code for that, it's C8102E. That means there are a lot of colors. You know, that hex code has 6 digits. So the last digit refers to the powers of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can have 16 to the power 5 colors. And almost 16 to the power 5. That's over a million colors. And it's too small. Actually, 1,048,576, which is the maximum number of rows you can have in Excel. If you were wondering where that number came from, it's 16 to the power 5. So I make the background red to tell me it's red light. Unless you know what the hell you're doing, don't touch that. Okay. In fact, you can even protect that cell later. I mean, I'll show you. If I say, let's right click, format cells, protection, it's by default locked anyway. I'm going to make these unlocked. So if I protect the sheet, the only thing user can do is select locked and unlocked cells. That's about it. Unless the cell is unlocked, you cannot write anything over there. You cannot delete anything. I'm not putting a password. I could. As you can see, I can change that. And so I can change that into something horrible. As soon as I try to type to a locked cell, it stops me. All right. You know, if you have a credit card, they're going to charge you probably 18% or so. That means every month, let's make it monthly instead of quarterly. And I'm going to unprotect the sheets. Every month, you're going to pay 1.5% interest, or they're going to charge you 1.5% interest. And typically, your minimum payment is slightly above that. Then I have length in years. I'm going to put a decimal number. Again, I'm going to copy paste the formatting of this, and maybe add another digit to it. And I'm going to get a little bit more fancy on you, and I'm going to actually put the information that says years on it. Internally, it changes nothing, but it tells the viewer or the user that we're talking about years. Then I can type this as length. Then you want to add a little text number format. Under Home tab, go to more number formats, custom. And I'm going to do this. That means use the comma format with 2 digits, but at the end, add years to it. Okay. So if I make this into 20, all right. Now I'm going to say number of periods. Of course, that's equal to iFreak times length of time, right? So in 20 years, there are 240 months. Of course, I'm going to make that background red, white, and bold. And let's do this here. I'm going to put a little checkbox in here. This may or may not be available in your computer. Under Insert tab, I have this thing called checkbox. It's basically a visual notation for a cell to have a value of true or false. If you click on it, if you look at the formula bar, it's true. Okay. On Wednesday, I'll show you a fancy way of doing conditional formatting on that. So on this cell, I'm going to write if this checkbox is true. I don't have to say equal anything because it's either true or false. I wanted to write here